This is Creatives Incorporated, where we take a look at the process and inspiration of creators. I'm Travis, your host, a location sound mixer and commercial photographer based in Pensacola, Florida. Today is Quarantine Special 2 with guest Cynthia Kirkland. Cynthia is a seamstress at Walt Disney World, an award-winning fashion designer and cosplayer, as well as a published academic, not to mention one of my favorite people. Cynthia, how are you doing today?
Hi, Travis. I'm doing good. I'm so excited for you and your family. You have a new edition coming, so that's super exciting.
Yeah, actually, we're recording a bit of these in advance so that we are having them out of the way, so we're not behind while Henry is coming. And that brings up a good point. Depending on when the audience is listening to this show, some things might seem a little out of date. So for reference, we're recording this on April 10th, 2020. So here's to hoping the world's in a better place soon.
Yeah.
So to start off, we're all kind of still in a bit of a lockdown and with social distancing. What are you doing to keep busy these days?
Oh my gosh. Currently, of course, because Walt Disney World is shut down, I have been just on call at home for meetings. But other than that, I have been creating 3D printed face shields for nurses, first responders, any healthcare workers across the country. Just literally the need was there. And I mean, other than sitting at home and crafting on personal projects such as, costumes and cosplay things that I enjoy, I saw the need and I really wanted to reach out and do my part because it felt, anything else I think at this point, anything else kind of felt a little selfish, just for the fact that everyone copes with crisis in their own way. But for me, if I can do something, I want to reach out.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the topics I really wanted to talk to you about today was, this is the Print the Curve movement you're talking about, right?
Yes. Print the Curve is a collective of volunteers and Print the Curve on Facebook. We have our Facebook group. And I started it only 2 weeks now. And we've grown to 600 members around the country. And they're all creating the same homemade PPE. And it's pretty incredible. And sometimes us 5 admins are having trouble keeping up with the demand and how many members we have, but everyone is one thing about this group is everyone has altruistic goals in mind. So the product, it's a super supportive environment. That's exactly it.
And for people who might not know, PPE stands for personal protective equipment. That's the masks and the face shields and stuff used by medical professionals, correct?
Yes. So we specialize in the plastic face shields. It's a 3D printed headband, and then we take the equivalent to it would be like a transparency sheet you would use in a school, and that would just be the visor on the 3D printed frame. And what the purpose of the face shield is to prolong the use of the medical staff's N95 mask, which is the special breathing mask that they use, because, with supplies being low, they're trying to extend their equipment as much as possible. So we're just providing, just another avenue for them to do that.
Now, did you say you're one of the admins for Print the Curve?
Oh, yeah, I'm actually the founder.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and admin, so head admin. And the reason it was started was a friend I had worked with in San Diego for San Diego Comic Con, Haley. Haley does events for the convention. Her sister was putting a call out. She's a RN at the COVID tent in Washington, D.C. at George Washington University Medical Center. And that's actually where I'm from. I'm from Washington, D.C. So, I had a little bit of a special connection to it that wasn't just a friend's sister. But, she just was like, can anybody print or anybody make these face shields? Because the mask movement was already underway. People were already starting to make masks. But I think, me personally, a lot of the information was unclear because most homemade masks are really mostly for personal use, and I didn't want to overstep, National Institute of Health guidelines as far as mask production because, it's just not necessarily what my intention was. However, I knew that the face shield could be easily printed, the frame of it, because I saw a 3D illustration that I think Amy had posted. And I was immediately like, I'm sure there's a model somewhere for this thing. And so immediately I got to work, started printing and got the product to Amy in maybe 4 days. 2-day print time. And then, the door kind of just blew open from there, honestly. And we've been reached out from organizations such as Tampa ABC 10 News recently did a little piece with our Tampa makers, and Sci-Fi Channel did a piece just because a third of our people are cosplayers or crafters. Most people are now able to get 3D printers because of, they want to recreate pop culture items or costumes. So 3D printers are becoming more ubiquitous in the home, which is really amazing. They're an incredible tool. So yeah, that was why Sci-Fi wanted to reach out, and it's been pretty incredible and now the word is getting out and more people are joining at an exponential rate. So it's pretty incredible, but it is a full-time job as well because it's also managing all of that as it's, in a crisis, you can't really postpone any meetings or any emails. So you just, it is a full-time job right now.
That's pretty amazing. I knew you were pretty early involved, and I didn't know you were the founder. So thank you for doing that. That's really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
So if a listener wanted to get involved with Print the Curve, how could they do that?
Honestly, we have an incredible variety of resources on Facebook. It's literally just Print the Curve Flat. That's the official title, Print the Curve Flat. It was just a, play on the title, Flatten the Curve. So Print the Curve Flat on Facebook. And we have a variety of resources, files, recommended materials, drop-off locations, and the rest of our members are extremely supportive. So honestly, it's been super easy for new members to get involved, and we want to make it that way. We want as many people to contribute as they are able, not overextend themselves, of course. That's not our intention because we are a voluntary organization, but we just want to make the opportunity available for people like me who perhaps, are having to stay at home from work, but they just see what's going on with the world right now and want to help any way they can. And honestly, 90% of our members are like that. It's pretty incredible.
That's awesome.
And also, I'm sorry to interrupt, also for RNs too. So RNs healthcare workers can join the group too, because there are resources for them as well to submit requests for their hospital, facility, ambulance, whatever they need. So I wanted to put that in there as well, that it's not just exclusively for makers, it's also for the healthcare workers.
I just think it's so great. I'm so happy that you're doing that. And it's one of the reasons, I think people are gonna love hearing from you. It's one of the reasons when we became friends that I've always wanted to stay in touch. You're one of the helpers, even in a crisis, and I think that shows a lot of your character.
I appreciate that.
So I know you've been stuck at home with the roommates and the kittens, but
yeah.
Do has anything been particularly difficult for you during this time?
Honestly, Not necessarily, because I think for me, Print the Curve has given me a sense of purpose, and if I have a focus and a direction, I think I'm most fulfilled and most happy with life in general. I think if I didn't have Print the Curve, or I didn't have something to keep my mind off of the news or off of, some of the, I guess, negativity in the world right now, I would probably definitely have a different answer. So, but yeah, no, I've actually been doing really well. And also, I think on the positive side for some people like myself who have roommates or family or kids, I think it's been a really nice bonding experience for all of us, because I think with the difference in scheduling of myself and one of my roommates, I have two roommates, Kelly, she works mostly nights, whereas I work in the daytime. So more often than not, we don't get a chance to see each other. But this crazy circumstance that is our world right now has kind of just forced us to just, have a good time with each other. And, I think I've learned a lot from her, and I think she can say that about me as well, as far as just personality, work style. I think it's been a really great experience in that regard as well, because with the hectic nature of daily life, we never got the opportunity to really observe each other. So it's interesting.
Now, you've got a lot going on, and I think there's something we can dig out of that. Do you think there's any advice you'd have for other creative people who are also self-isolating?
Oh, I mean, yes, because I think a lot of creative people like myself tend to always feel the need to be productive. And that's always something we fight against, because I think creative people, our brain is always thinking of new ideas, new projects, new anything. We can't seem to turn our brain off from just, once again, creating or making. That's our name. That's our nature. But I think we also, perhaps this opportunity would give us a time to allow ourselves to relax in some ways, because, for instance, those that might not be able to go to work, or I don't want to say it, but those who've been furloughed, which is the, unfortunate alternative, I think it's okay to not want to do anything or just take a day off. Like it actually is okay. Honestly, it's forcing you to finally do that, makers. Like, this is your forced staycation. So I think if you definitely just take the time to be creative and get those projects done that you've been, hanging over your head for so long, but also take a mental health check and just take this opportunity to reconnect with friends and family through FaceTime, or just, take that time to reorganize something that you've been really meaning to do in between projects. So it's just, I think in many ways, this can be a more relieving time for some people mentally, regardless of what's happening outside. I think it can be a good self-check-in.
And as you mentioned, Walt Disney World is currently closed, and I don't think many people could have imagined that happening.
We didn't imagine it happening.
and I mentioned at the top of the show that, you're a seamstress at Disney, but I'm aware that your role is a bit more special than that. Could you actually better explain what it is that you do?
Yeah, it's a lot more specialized than that. I often... I just use the blanket term seamstress because it's the easiest way for people to just get an idea of where I work and what I do. And I used to be exclusively a seamstress. Now I work more with, in costume. I guess the best term to put it is costuming customer service globally. And so after a garment is produced and goes to perhaps Tokyo, Disney, or Disneyland Paris, helping to coordinate the fit and function of these garments around the world. So if Paris, for instance, one project I really enjoyed was the Summer of Heroes for Marvel that Paris recently did. That was one of my favorite projects because I love Marvel. And, you know, just handling the needs of the park with their various offerings. And also, I mean, a lot of things I can't really speak about right now for NDAs, but there's a lot of really cool things coming that I will know about before our Seamstress teams, just to get prepared for what these entertainment offerings are going to entail in the long term, and the maintenance, and sometimes just understanding the budgetary needs. So I think now it's so hard to talk about it, but now my job is more on the organizational management clerical side of costuming. But I do still miss production. I do miss production at times. But I think this is even more important, just to coordinate with our international partners.
Well, you know, I know how high of a quality and how talented you are as a costumer, and I know you say you miss that at work, but I know you're still trying to get as much of that done at home as you can with your cosplay. In fact, that's how we met.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met at a comic convention back in, what was it, 2015?
Ooh, yeah, it was 2015. It was a while.
Yeah. And so immediately I was struck by how amazing the craftsmanship was for your costume. And in the 5 years since then, you know, I'd love to know, in your opinion, how has costuming or cosplay in general kind of changed?
Oh, wow. Once again, we just hit upon it. 3D printing is, I think, 3D printing has become ubiquitous with costuming, especially in communities such as Star Wars with the 501st. Their standards actually make people buy 3D printers because they don't allow foam armor into the 501st Corps. It has to be plastic or some sort of injection molding of some sort. And which is, wow, it's that, I think, alone has really opened people's eyes up to the possibility of 3D printing, as well as the availability of files and models that other makers are creating and putting out on the free use sites like Thingiverse. But other than 3D printing, I think just the one thing I've also noticed, and that change was already in production. It wasn't really something that has changed in the last 5 years. I would say perhaps 10 years. But more cosplayers and hobby costumers like myself are getting more involved in creating it as a career, which is really fascinating, watching some of, you know, the people I've cosplayed with in the past now moving on to working with professional companies or TV and film. I think it's really fascinating how once I used to view the costuming or cosplay community as, honestly, I've been doing it for almost 20 years now. In 2023 will be 20 years for me doing this hobby. I think when I started and when I was in college kind of deciding what I was going to do with my life, I didn't think people would take me seriously as a cosplayer. I honestly thought that theaters and companies such as Disney would see that I don't have professional training and immediately shoot down my skill set. That's just, you know, I guess how the educational system kind of makes it seem. You know, if you don't have the training, then you don't, you know, people won't really notice you. But that was a terrible way to think, because honestly, most of the incredible costumers that I know one seamstress that worked on Westworld, Marvel, and The Mandalorian. She honestly can tell you she has 2 associate's degrees just in fashion and costuming. Like, she just has the training. Like, it's something she loved. She wanted to practice it. She took internships in various costume houses and corset making and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm so happy that costuming and cosplay has become more mainstream and ubiquitous, because I don't really want younger generations to feel how I felt, where I didn't think people would take me seriously. And now I'm really surprised I thought that way, because this is my career now, based on just making costumes of comic book and anime characters in my basement. That's where it started.
Well, that's great that a career can be born out of passion like that. And I think that's going to kind of add fuel to the fire and hopefully get you through, a lifetime career worth of making. And I think that, I have another friend we'll be talking with on the podcast soon, who did something very similar. A passion of his, something that most people would have just kept as a hobby, has turned into a fairly lucrative income for him and his family. And I asked him, do you think you'll, for a while he was making very good money doing it. I said, do you think you'll want to retire early? And he told me, he's like, Travis, I retired the moment I started getting paid to do this. He says, this is what I would do in retirement. He said, so I'm, he's just, very lucky and very grateful to be doing it. But like you, it didn't happen for no reason. They're incredibly talented and passionate about what they do.
True.
It's just people seeing the value in that. So what are your goals moving forward in costuming and cosplay? Not necessarily with your work at Disney, but more in your personal projects.
Oh, personal projects? I think my goal right now is, honestly, now that, I think to find, I know this sounds probably precocious or silly. I always say that, but it's not. I want to find perhaps the next stage or competition. After I think the Her Universe fashion show, I was out of kind of showcasing or competing in cosplay for a little bit, maybe 5 years, just because, just for personal reasons. So I kind of want to take my current costume, really hone it, which right now I'm working on the armor for Mysterio from Spider-Man Far From Home. And that's a long-term passion project with, all of the lights and craziness that's inside of it. It's already overwhelming, but we're going to do it. Yeah.
Are there any skills you're having to develop to be able to execute that kind of project?
Oh, totally. Right now, in many ways, because the lighting effects, I'm having to teach myself just how to solder, as well as lighting, AC/DC differences, the voltage I need, battery power, and that's something that I've never had to do yet. Because, most people, if they think lights, they probably stick fairy lights in a costume because it's already preset, it's already got the battery pack on it. But I think for this one, I just want the full experience. And also every new project is a new opportunity to learn something new. And I think that's why people do creative hobbies and continue on their passion projects, because they know that the fruits of those long hours will always, there's always value in what is produced. It might not be good. I've produced some stuff that's not great, but I still learned even maybe what not to do for the future. So I think that's always what's kept me going in the costuming. It's just learning, always learning. I don't know. I think if I wasn't always seeking new techniques and new knowledge, I think that's like my sole purpose.
So in 2018, you won the Her Universe Fashion Show Judges Choice Award and then went on to design a line of official MCU Avengers apparel for Hot Topic. Can you kind of tell us the story behind that journey?
Oh, sure, I can do that. Her Universe is a clothing brand started by Ashley Eckstein, who is the voice of Ahsoka Tano for the Star Wars animated series, The Clone Wars, and I believe she's in Rebels as well. I personally haven't seen the show, but she is a gem as a human. And she, every year at San Diego Comic-Con, she took her brand, Her Universe, and created a new form of competition and fandom that was a geek couture fashion show. Because I think what it was a lot of fans were going to conventions not as a costume recreation exactly, but they were always taking their own spin on their costumes, as far as like taking a fashion take on a character, especially at San Diego Comic-Con, because the con floor is so packed and hectic. I can't even imagine wearing a large costume to Comic-Con. So oftentimes fans will just create something comfy, something fashionable, but still it's so recognizable as, let's say, Iron Man or the Joker or whatever. And I found out about this fashion show because a friend of mine ran into Ashley Eckstein, the founder, at a local Hot Topic, because she's actually from Orlando. Her family is still here. I've met her mom. Yeah. So after running into Ashley was like telling her about the event, the fashion show that she does. And however, my friend perhaps is not, she's like, I'm not really a great illustrator. And as far as sewing, I think you, Cynthia, should enter. And so I was like, that sounds pretty fun, because for a while I kind of was thinking about other ways to express myself creatively, with designing, fashion looks for characters. And especially at Disney, there's events such as Dapper Day, which is where people will create vintage-inspired attire of a certain character that they enjoy and just walk around the park. It's actually really cute. And so there's a lot of creative fuel here in Orlando, of course. And I submitted in 2016, got in for the first time with a Batman-inspired design. And then 2017, I actually didn't get in. It's a very competitive environment. Only less than 30 people are chosen for the fashion show from around the country every year, and now Canada as well. We had a Canadian last year. I think they opened it up for the first time. So that's incredibly competitive. And then 2018, I submitted again. I really poured all my focus and energy into a Shape of Water inspired design. It just won the Oscar that year, so I really enjoyed the film. And judges loved the dress. I won that year, and then went on with Hot Topic to design. I didn't even know what the prize was until they announced it, and I lost my mind, because as you know, I absolutely adore Marvel. Absolutely. And so it was a dream come true to be able to design a line of clothing for an international market through Hot Topic of Iron Man, Captain America, Rocket Raccoon, and I was just over the moon. So yeah, I think I'll never take that opportunity for granted. That was amazing. You mentioned earlier that you had taken a bit of a break from kind of competition in cosplay and costuming during the 2 years you were focusing on that, and then the couple 2-3 years since. But winning Her Universe was also a bit of a mic drop. So taking a break. And do you feel like you might, though, going back into competition, are you putting a little bit too much pressure on yourself, or you have to now perform to
a certain standard, or you might be judged a little more harshly? Or are you able to kind of let every project be its own project and not carry that weight with it?
I think I'm more able to step back and realize that as much as I say I want to get back into competition, who knows if that's actually true? Because at the end of the day, I just want to make the costume as best to my specifications. I just was thinking more along the lines of, I'd really like to go to New York Comic Con one time. And one way to do that would be through maybe like the competition or contest, just to incentivize myself. I think it's more the competition now that I've more matured in my passion and really had more confidence now in what I'm creating. Not that I didn't have confidence before, but you understand that as a creator, you're starting out, you're not quite sure, and you're comparing yourself to professionals who've been doing it for years as far as quality. But I think now that I don't have to prove myself anymore, I think the idea of the competition is more of just a time motivator, more than a quality and exclusive motivator to creating a garment. Because now, if I feel like I'm not gonna make it for the New York Comic Con deadline, which is October, and I started this costume literally in December, then I'm not gonna do it. Like I want to know that with all of the time, energy, money I'm putting into these projects, that I want to feel good about it at the end of the day. I don't want to cut corners. So I think that's actually the perspective I'm going into it. I'm not really giving myself too much pressure, because guess what? There's so many events. Well, maybe not now with like the COVID closures, but in the future, there's going to be so many events and so many opportunities to get back on stage that I'm not really concerned as much anymore. I'm more concerned over my mental health and my costume quality than trying to impress a sometimes fickle panel of judges, because you never know even if they'll like what you produce. I've been in that situation before. But yeah, so
maybe
I think
someone just really doesn't like Jake Gyllenhaal. Can you imagine?
I know, man. Like, what if somebody doesn't like Jake Gyllenhaal and I come in with a Mysterio costume? The horror. Actually, that's really funny.
Now, but you wouldn't, even if the costume is ready, and you wouldn't forego going to a con. You might just wear something else, right?
Oh yeah, no. That's often what I'll do. I think that's just. I think when you amass a closet full of costumes, there's always something to wear. You can always. I think I've never not gone to an event over a costume. I think I've always just accepted that it's like, you know what, I'm still going to have a good time. And I think, yeah.
I saw just yesterday a write-up on a guy. If he's not a cosplayer, man, he has the heart of one. It's a guy who has to go walk his dog every day. And to kind of create a bit of entertainment for his neighbors, every day he gets this kind of elaborate costume on. And every day's a new costume.
Oh my God, I love it. That's so cool.
So it's something strange every day. Just guy walking down. Funny enough, the dog doesn't seem to mind. But
because the dog is like, oh, I see this at home every day.
I get it. My human's weird.
Yeah, I get it. My human is very strange. I'm sure my cats feel that way.
Now, my favorite thing about attending conventions when I was working them as a photographer was the friends I would meet. I mean, I got to meet a lot of guests, and which is the term for celebrity guests, some of which I saw so many times over the years that we started little friendships, and con organizers and cosplayers. But it was the people that I would meet and you'd kind of just get along with, that you'd end up meeting for lunches and dinners, and you would stay in contact between conventions, and those would grow to, like you and I, like it's been years now.
Oh yeah,
I've come down to visit you. You've come up to visit us here in Pensacola.
Yeah.
And I think that's my absolute favorite thing, is those relationships you build.
Yes. You're right about that. You're totally right about that. I think foundationally, that is the product of a positive community. If anything, it's just the relationships that you build through your shared passion of photography or costuming, or however you like to express yourself. I know Star Wars Celebration's coming up, so that's a big draw for Star Wars fans. I've been there, but it's just kind of that coming together of like-minded people who would probably never meet on the streets because we're coming from across, not only across the nation, but across the world. Like I think one of the funniest things, or not funniest, but it was pretty cool things about Star Wars Celebration is that all of the community groups that were able to have a table at the event, one of them was actually from Japan. Like they had the Japan Star Wars fandom, not 501st, but they were a costume organization in Japan, and they were there talking about, what they do. And I was like, that is incredible. That it's just, I don't know. I just thought it was incredible to open up my eyes to how much these fandoms and these events touch people from, not just America. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's just the product of a positive community.
Yeah, I think that's great. Now, one of the things I think is great is the level of creative. Like we said, we mentioned photographers and costumers and stuff like that, but the artists, that you meet, people who are interested in painting or drawing or pencil work for like comics that are there, writers. I've made so many friends that are in so many different disciplines of creativity. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us start by emulating the work we love, those fandoms, whether it be Star Wars or an anime or a video game. You want to emulate the kind of artwork that you're seeing and the stories that have attracted you to it. And through that, you tend to find a way to express then an inner creativity. Like you said, people will start off by creating a costume that usually mirrors something that they like, but once they grow a bit, it's very common for them to put their own twist on it or to kind of do original character designs that they'll build and wear. And I think that is so fascinating, and I'm especially within the cosplay community, it's not just the costuming, it's the makeup. It's like you said, you're having to learn essentially basic electrical work. The level of skill sets and the variety of it that one person masters, it's a bit of a modern Renaissance creative, I think.
I think so too. And you're totally right about the concept of taking a genre or a creative outlet that you want to learn how to do it by copying or emulating it in some way. And then later, once you kind of understand how the system works, you want to find your own voice within the community. So that's why we get a lot of creatives branching out and doing some really cool work. I'm just going to use the example of the fact that we can, through medical technology and costuming, we fuse them to create robotic arms that look like Iron Man's gauntlet for a child. I think it's pretty incredible. Once people, they love Iron Man, they want to learn robotics and how to recreate that kind of suit. And then later on, they become more knowledgeable and confident, and they can give back. So I think that's really cool.
I think it's incredible. And as we begin to wrap things up here, Cynthia, it's, by the way, been amazing having you on the podcast. Thank you. Where can our listeners find you and your work? Oh,
I think mostly Instagram is probably the easiest way just to find my work, and also I'm pretty active, and my username is Athel Artistry, ATHEL_artistry, and Athel is just a dead word from Celtic that means noble. So if anybody was curious, because there's no way to pronounce it.
Well, it's wonderful. Thank you so much. And if you are interested in finding more about this podcast, it's Creatives Incorporated at creativesincorporated.com. Thanks for joining us, Cynthia, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis.